Welcome to the deep dive. So we've got a really interesting mix today. You've brought us the company summary for Reliable Security Plus. That's a physical security company down in Houston.
Right.
And also this article from Security Magazine, Why Every Business Needs a Data Security Strategy.
Yeah, seems like an odd pairing at first, maybe. Physical guards and, well, digital data.
Exactly, but I think that's what we're going to unpack here, right? How these two things, physical and digital security, actually connect and why businesses really need to think about both. It's about the whole picture.
Absolutely. It's two sides of the same coin, really. Protecting what's valuable. One's the tangible stuff, buildings, people. The other is the digital information. So maybe we start with Reliable Security Plus, see what they're about.
Sounds good. Let's start there, on the ground. So Reliable Security Plus, Houston-based, and yeah, fundamentally they provide security guards on contract.
But it's more than just a guard at the door, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they list uniformed officers, off-duty police, which is interesting. That adds a different layer of authority maybe.
Definitely.
Marked vehicle patrols, for visibility, traffic control, and even bodyguards.
Bodyguards, okay. So that suggests they handle some pretty high-stakes situations protecting specific people.
Exactly. High-profile folks, the summaries mentions executives, dignitaries, celebrities. And they seem to work across the board, residential, commercial, even government clients.
And it's not just reacting either. They mention security training and consulting.
Right. So they're helping clients think ahead, manage risks before something happens. It's not just about having a guard there after the fact.
That makes sense, being proactive.
But what really jumped out at me was their philosophy. They call it customer service-oriented protection.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Well, it sounds like they're trying to blend traditional security, surveillance, handling crises, patrolling with being, well, helpful and professional, engaging with people, not just standing there silently.
Huh. So security that's also approachable, almost like an extension of the client's own customer service.
Kind of, yeah. Like security that adds to the environment positively, rather than just being a necessary, maybe slightly intimidating presence.
That's actually a pretty smart approach. It ties into what the data security article talks about later, building trust. If your security personnel are professional and helpful, that builds confidence.
Exactly. And their mission statement sort of backs this up. They talk about providing exceptionally trained, well-groomed, and reliable professionals affordably. And this phrase, duty with a smile.
Duty with a smile. Okay.
Yeah, and it comes from this belief, they state, that safety and security are basic human rights. It sounds quite principled.
It does. And their vision expands on that, doesn't it? Something about collaboration.
Yeah, they envision a safer community through collaboration. Businesses, community leaders, law enforcement, and contract security like them all working together.
So they don't see themselves operating in a vacuum.
Doesn't seem like it. And then they list their core values. DRIPP. DRIPP.
Okay, what does DRPP stand for?
Diversity. It takes everybody. Reliability, a duty-first mindset. Integrity, having a code of ethics. Professionalism, skilled, trained staff. And P is partnership.
Partnership. There's that collaboration idea again.
Right. They explicitly say RSP, displaying a we attitude. It all seems to tie back to that customer service collaborative approach. Not just being guards, but partners in safety.
Which, even in physical security, makes a lot of sense today. It's not just about muscle. It's about understanding the environment, integrating, communicating. That we attitude probably makes them more effective overall.
Okay, so that gives us a good feel for Reliable Security Plus and their philosophy on the physical side.
Right. Boots on the ground, customer-focused.
Now let's pivot. Let's look at the Security Magazine article. This takes us firmly into the digital realm, data security.
And the article kicks off by saying, look, the threat to sensitive data is real and it's urgent.
Yeah, it talks about attackers getting credentials, passwords, logins, whatever, and then sort of moving around inside networks looking for the good stuff.
And the good stuff is valuable, right? That's the key motivation. The article mentions PII, personally identifiable information, credit card numbers, health data. That stuff sells for a lot on the dark web.
So data security, at its heart, is just about protecting that digital info throughout its whole life.
Pretty much. Protecting it from being lost, stolen, messed with, or seen by people who shouldn't see it, using various methods and technologies.
Like the article mentions a few.
Yeah, things like data masking, hiding parts of the data, encryption, scrambling it so it's unreadable without a key, redaction, permanently removing sensitive bits, tools to make the data less useful if it does get stolen.
Okay. But the really scary part is what happens if you don't have good data security. The consequences.
Oh, absolutely. The article lays those out pretty starkly. First up, money. Financial loss.
How bad can it be?
Well, it cites an IBM estimate for UK companies back in 2020. Average cost to recover from a breach was around £3 million. And even the average cost per breach is estimated around £8,000. That can cripple a smaller business.
Wow. Okay. So serious cash. But it's not just the direct costs, is it?
No way. Reputation damage is huge. Think about it. If a company you use gets breached, loses your data, do you trust them as much?
Probably not.
Exactly. It can hit sales, damage the brand long term. The article suggests being transparent with customers can help, but the damage is often done.
Right. And then there's the legal side. Compliance.
Big one.
Yeah.
Regulations like GDPR in Europe, HIPAA for health info in the US. If you handle that kind of data and you drop the ball on security, you could face massive fines, legal action. It's not optional anymore.
And it can actually stop the business from running.
Yeah, business disruption. A major breach can bring operations to a halt. You lose revenue, productivity tanks. It underlines why you need a disaster recovery plan backups, knowing exactly what to do when an incident happens. You need to be able to get back online.
Okay, so the risks are clear. What does the article say makes up a good data security strategy? What are the key parts?
It breaks it down pretty well. First is data classification. Basically figuring out what data you have and how sensitive or critical it is. You group it. That way, you can focus your best security efforts on the most important stuff. You don't necessarily need Fort Knox security for, I don't know, the lunch menu.
Right. Prioritize resources. Makes sense. What's next?
Access control. This is fundamental. Strictly limiting who can see or touch what data.
So like permissions.
Exactly. Role-based access, giving people access only to what they need for their job. Strong ways to prove who you are authentication, knowing what data you actually have inventory, and importantly, keeping an eye on who's doing what with the data user activity monitoring.
Layers of defense, basically.
You got it. Then there's encryption. We mentioned it earlier. Scrambling the data so unauthorized people can't read it. Super important, both when data is moving across networks in transit and when it's just sitting on a server or laptop at rest.
Okay. Encryption. What else? This next one seems really key, especially linking back to the reliable security plus people focus.
Oh, yes. Awareness and security training for employees.
Yeah.
Hugely important.
The article calls employees the best defense.
It does, because so many breaches happen because of human error, not necessarily malicious hackers. Phishing emails, weak passwords, mistakes, training staff on the dangers, on best practices, making sure they know they play a role in security that's critical.
A well-informed team is a safer team.
Definitely. And finally, the strategy can't just sit on a shelf. The threat landscape changes constantly, so consistent updates and testing are vital.
Meaning keep your software up to date.
That's part of it, yes. But also updating the strategy itself as new threats emerge using new security tools. And this is key, regularly testing your defenses, like running simulated attacks to see where the weaknesses are before the bad guys find them.
Okay, so classify data, control access, encrypt, train people, and keep updating and testing. That sounds like a solid framework.
It is. And if companies do all that, the article says there are clear benefits beyond just avoiding disaster.
Like what? Obviously, protecting the information itself is number one. Keeping customer payment details, health records, PII safe.
Absolutely. But also, it helps maintain or even boost your reputation. Customers trust companies that take their data seriously. It becomes a competitive advantage, almost.
Interesting point. What else?
It can actually reduce costs down the line. Building security in from the start is often cheaper than cleaning up a mess after a breach. Less emergency spending, you know?
Proactive versus reactive again.
Exactly. And it can help efficiency, too. Secure systems tend to be more stable, fewer outages caused by attacks, employees can just get on with their jobs, data retrieval is smoother, things just run better.
Okay, and there was one more benefit mentioned, which really ties back to that human element again.
Right. Mitigating insider threats. We often think of hackers outside, but threats can come from inside, too.
Maliciously or just mistakes.
Both. Someone might intentionally steal data, or they might accidentally email sensitive info to the wrong person, or misconfigure a setting. The article notes that human error is a factor in like 80% of workplace accidents, and it's significant in data breaches too.
Wow, 80%. That really highlights the training point.
It does. So using monitoring, making sure access is strictly role-based, maybe adopting a zero trust approach.
Zero trust. What's that simply?
Basically, don't trust anyone or anything trying to connect to your systems by default. Always verify, even if they're already inside the network. It helps reduce the risk from both accidental and intentional insider actions.
I see. So the article really paints a picture of data security being absolutely essential today. You need a plan, you need the right tools like erasure, encryption, making data resilient, masking it.
Yeah, explore those modern techniques. The takeaway is pretty clear. Businesses that get data security, make a solid plan, use the right software, they're the ones who protect their data, meet regulations, and crucially keep their customers' trust.
So wrapping this up then, we've looked at Reliable Security Plus, focusing on that physical on-the-ground security, but with a really interesting customer service angle.
Right, that duty with a smile partnership approach.
And then we dove into the Security Magazine article, laying out why data security is non-negotiable and what goes into a strong strategy classification, access control, encryption, training, testing.
The whole digital fortress idea?
Exactly. So the clear message is you need both. Physical security and digital security are intertwined. They're not separate issues anymore.
Definitely not. You can have the best firewall in the world, but it doesn't help if someone can walk in and steal a server, or vice versa.
Which leads us to the final thought for our listeners. Considering Reliable Security Plus's focus on that people-centric, customer service-oriented protection on the ground and all the digital measures we just discussed,
Yeah.
how do you see these two worlds, physical and digital security, increasingly coming together? How do they converge to protect your overall interests, your assets in this very connected age?
Yeah, that's a great question to ponder. How do those physical interactions and digital defenses need to work hand in hand? Something to think about.
Absolutely. Thanks for diving deep with us today.